Chag Samayach, which means happy holidays. The rising sun is the light of consciousness. It emanates from within each and every one of us. It's here, it's there, it's everywhere, and it's nowhere. Though its atmosphere is rare, the place that it's coming from is within. And when we commune with this light, we feel it. We feel the connection within our soul. And the Kabbalists teach that the purpose of holidays is not to commemorate or continue traditions, but rather it's a time when a particular channel becomes available for us to connect with the light of the Creator. It's an opportunity for us to develop our spirituality, to transform our nature, and to participate in physical actions in order to awaken and draw this countenance unto us, to bring that spiritual light into our experience. And the Israelites who lived during the age of the original Hanukkah were willing to go beyond all limits to combat negativity. And this is what our prayer ministry team does on your behalf when you make a prayer request by filling out the form in your Sunday program and placing it in the treasure chest, or by going online at highdesertcsl.org, or by requesting a prayer live and in person in the prayer chamber. We do what we call holding the high watch for you. So while you are mired in the muck, we are knowing for you what your heart desires. And this is what the Israelites did. The amount of spiritual light that any spiritual action reveals depends upon your understanding of its power. Legend has it that following the destruction of the Holy Temple, there was only enough oil to light the menorah for one day. Yet it burned for 8 days. And this is the reason why the Jewish people, when they light each candle on the menorah, spend 30 minutes in contemplation, inviting in the energy of that light. And this is what we ask of you when we ask you to take home the prayer that is on the back half of the Spiritual Mind Request form and to recite it in the morning and the evening. This is to develop your conscious awareness of that connection. So I encourage you, as this holiday season is upon us and all these avenues of giving and love and light are more predominant, to really do the deep inner work, to take the time to connect with Source. So Hanukkah, which is also known as the Festival of Light, marks the beginning of our experience of spiritual reality. It is what Dr. Ernest Holmes calls the great reality. And he says this about it: we are taking everything that does not belong to the great reality and trading it in, as it were, for that which ought to be. So this great reality, this one power, this one substance, this one energy, is the living presence that animates everything and everyone. Whether you call it by lighting the menorah, or you practice channeling with the Benedictine monks, Whether you meditate with the crystal bowls, whether you make a pilgrimage to Sanctuary de la Chamaya. What's important to understand is that it is the power of the mind that brings that energy towards you. The mind of God awaits your recognition. The power of God awaits your direction. When a manufacturer produces a car, there's no way for them to know what the driver's going to do with it. I had a good friend who used to always say, RTFM. And I'll give you the edited version of that. Read the fine manual. So if we don't read the manual for ourselves, if we don't take the action, and we rely on someone else's experience, learning to drive the car, learning how to invite in the Great Spirit can be tricky because we haven't personalized it for ourselves. What if the driver's ed teacher has a deep-rooted belief in accidents? And we trust this person to teach us how to do this. How will that affect the outcome of our experience? Raymond Charles Barker tells us that consciousness determines experience, and experience denotes consciousness. So it's the yin and the yang. It's the in, the out, the up, the down. We need to experience that direct reflection of spirit for ourselves by engaging in whatever practice works for us. Whatever we experience is a direct reflection of whatever we hold in our conscious beliefs. And when we don't have a demonstration, we've simply given more power to what we don't want than to what we do want. So the only thing that stands in our way as a culture is that we don't realize that it is our divine birthright to be happy, to be healthy, to be prosperous, to be able to share the divine calling that emanates from within us. Seeing the world from this perspective would certainly shift things, wouldn't it? Our consciousness is an inlet and an outlet of that mind in action. So important to be mindful of what we let in. Even more important to be mindful of what we let out. Raymond Charles Barker says that material man lives in the consciousness of that which is. Spiritual man lives in the consciousness of that which will be. The mothership on their website has a picture posted of one of the ministers in the field. And the quote below it says that the science of mind teaching changed my world from black and white to color. So it's time for us to change our belief systems. We realize the futility of war, yet we criticize one another. We expect our country to live in peace, yet we practice ideas of separation. Things that we once thought impossible are now becoming possible. For example, flying. We used to think that that meant you went around the earth, through outer space, perhaps to the moon. Now we hear stories about multidimensional experiences, astral travel. And I love what Alan Cohen has to say about this. When he was hanging with all of his evolved friends and they were sharing their phenomenal experiences, he was quoted as saying, "I'm still waiting for an in-body experience." So we're talking about a change in our consciousness where we begin to release those old race beliefs and embody new patterns that can help us to create the new earth. We are becoming part of a greater cosmic awareness, and in order to live this larger ideal, We have to expand our idea of what is and begin living from what could be. Material man who lives only to make money is losing ground in the current scheme of things. Accumulating stuff, larger houses, bigger cars, doesn't always lead us towards fulfillment. More is just more. And as many of you know, I just experienced an incredible cruise to the Caribbean. And we visited the city of Havana, which was kind of a step back in time for me. It felt like I was in Miami again as a young child. I saw my grandmother's 1957 Bel Air with the wings on the back go by. And the style of architecture there reminded me of Miami. Some of the buildings are painted in the lovely deco colors that are popular there now. And some of them are kind of, crumbling, and people are in all different types of dwellings. And so there was some conversation about that at the dinner table that evening. And we had a wonderful group of lively souls that we ate with. And they were very upset because the Cuban people didn't seem to have all the material things that we have. And they were concerned about how sad they might be that they don't have stuff. And so, of course, being the person that I am, I asked the question, why? Why do they need to have more material things in order to make them happy? They have free health care. They can go to school all the way up to becoming a doctor, a lawyer, anything they choose, completely free. So how is that so challenging for many of you? And of course there was dead silence at the table. You could have heard a pin drop. But it takes courage to stand in the truth of who we are as spiritual beings, to be the example, to be the light that shines. It's important for us to begin to imagine a world that is filled with joy and peace. A new earth that emanates a consciousness that understands how the grand working of the larger mind provides everything we need on time and in divine law and order. Barker says we are on the threshold of all that the infinite mind has conceived for us to have, to experience, and to enjoy. And the work, of course, is done within our own mind. It's up to us to build those rainbow bridges to the new earth. A place where security isn't based upon things, but upon ideas instead. A place where we can become mentally and emotionally flexible. And in order to do this, we have to rise above the pettiness of our ego. And we have to turn towards the authenticity of all our relationships. We have to let go of the attachment to the way things should be. And I'm going to teach you the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not should all over thyself. Let's say that together. Thou shalt not should all over thyself. So changing our belief patterns isn't always easy. Some of them are deeply embedded in our thinking. We've accepted them, for the most part, unconsciously as children, because everyone thought the same way. Some examples of those beliefs. Death is certain. Security can only be found in material things. Love is primarily a function of sex. Few people can be trusted. Pain and sickness are natural. If we continue to default to our old belief systems, the law will outpicture those belief systems in our experience. And you heard George Harrison sing, "On the street of villains, if we are taken for a ride, we can attract in the devil as a guide, wind up crippled by the boundaries, programmed into guilt, until our nervous system starts to tilt." And that album was recorded when George Harrison was preparing to ascend. And so it's some very deep-rooted, meaningful messages are contained on that CD. And his journey was quite profound, as were, of course, the Beatles. So to stand in the midst of diversity isn't always easy, but it has to be done. Raymond Charles Barker tells us the seeds planted in consciousness must, by the law of mind, bring forth after their own kind. So if we plant orange seeds, we can't expect to harvest grapefruits. If we plant beliefs in scarcity, we can't expect to experience abundance. And I don't know about you, but I'm planting seeds of incredible abundance that are manifesting out of this incredible design here called the Holiday Regifting Sale. Are you feeling that coming out? Everything we can imagine already exists in the mind of God. Because there is only one mind, we live and move and have our being within that possibility. Destroying negative thought patterns while affirming the opposite beliefs and opinions clears a pathway for our spiritual development. Infinite mind acts through us with an exactness that requires full-out use of the mind in complete alignment with our emotions. Everything necessary for any demonstration already exists as pure potential. Keeping our consciousness free of lack and limitation is what allows something greater to manifest through us. Each of us is made out of the same cosmic God stuff. We all have unlimited potential. So think of God, Buddha, Allah, or whatever you choose to call that higher power, as something that is grand, that is infinite, that is expanding at all times and in all places. And then align yourself within that energy. Take a definitive stand. Declare who you are as a spiritual being. And do not waver. When you ignite the light of consciousness, which is the title of my talk this morning, from within, the law of mind can demonstrate anything through you. So let's shine our light of consciousness as a community. Let's be the beacon of light that we really are. And let's draw unto us all who are ready to not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. Thank you, and namaste.